Okay, give me a second. I'm looking for my headphones. I thought they were right here and they're not.
Yo.
Hello.
Oh, what the hell?
Oh, you can hear me?
Your speaker is not working. Please check your connection. Oh my God, what the fuck? You hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. Bizarre. All right.
For me.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey. Looks like I'm doing them without. Okay.
Okay.
There we go.
Oh, awesome. Oh, wow. You have a way better background than I do. Christmas tree. Is there anything you want to lead with before getting into the 47 movies we got to do?
Did you guys see She Said?
I did.
No.
I just want to say this so I don't sound like a complete asshole, but
You're live on YouTube.
For the 3 viewers that watch the YouTube show.
but I love Carrie Mulligan, but what's her face? I just can't stand. Okay. Said it.
Obviously, we got to introduce Jeff as the new co-host.
Mhm.
But any of the other, I know you sent several topics over that.
I mean, the one's just for during the conversation about the Fablemans, and we don't have to talk about the Grinch thing. I don't know. We can if we want, but
if you find a way to bring it up organically, go for it.
Yeah.
All right. Are we ready then?
I'm ready.
All right. Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zera. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick. And joining us from here on out is cousin Jeff. But how do you want to be known on the show? Want to be known as your name, Jeff Lassiter? Or do you want to keep our name we gave you?
Yeah, I think people just know me as cousin Jeff, so we can refer to my name when we start plugging the artwork later.
There we go. But yeah, he will be now a permanent co-host on the show.
Sorry.
As I am no longer, I shouldn't say no, I'm still part of the show, but you notice we're missing weeks, almost every other week now, and it's all my fault. And hopefully Jeff and Sean can kind of pick up the slack, and we can give you a weekly show from here on out. So thank you very much for joining the show, Jeff. I'm really excited about that.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks a lot for asking.
Visit us at IHateCritics.net, Everyone's Critic Podcast.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our handle is CriticsPod. Listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Alexa, all your podcatchers. Subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts. Give us a 5-star review. We'll read your review on the air. And I believe Sean has some Blu-rays that he's been given by several distribution companies.
Specifically, I posted this on our Facebook. You can, if you give us a review, you can get the movie Alienoid, which is a kind of a viral hit. It's a Blu-ray of the movie Alienoid, which is out now, I believe. And if you want that, just give us a review and send it to us. Make sure we see it. And I've got 2 copies to give away.
Awesome. If you want to join our Patreon, patreon.com/criticspod is the best way to help support the podcast. We do have some bonus episodes out there, but hopefully we'll be able to start doing more now that we have a more solid lineup. And then
just quickly, we don't want if you're doing brand deals, we're not interested in jewelry scams. We got one of our first brand deal offer in a long time, and it was a jewelry scam.
We know it's a scam because we fell for it.
Oh, yes. I looked it up. Jeff, yes. You're not getting your necklace.
I want to be like an influencer and wear jewelry for fake accounts on Instagram. That'd be great.
On the bright side, we never fell for established titles like everybody else, like the big YouTube people did. So that's good.
Nice.
We would have fallen for it if they'd offered us money, but
yeah, not a lot of money in this this format at the moment for us, at least. We do have our TeePublic page. If you search Critics Pod, it's also linked at ihatecritics.net. Sean, why don't you plug your movie review site?
Yeah, it's just Sean at themovies.blogspot.com. I've got 20 plus years of movie reviews, more than 2,000 there on top of the 1,200 reviews I've done for Vocal. So there's a lot of content there, and it's all going there. So yeah, I do click on the Vocal links, obviously, and read that stuff. But yeah, that's where everything can be found very easily, is on that site.
And then Jeff, where can people find your artwork?
You can go to jefflassiter.com. That's got links to my TeePublic and to my Etsy shop. TeePublic's always on sale, and I run sales quite a bit on prints and original artwork. So
Can you still get that cursed Jar Jar Binks art that you were putting out?
Oh yeah, I've got Jar Jar. I've got lots of Jar Jar.
It's terrifying.
Striptease Jar Jar.
That is the one I'm talking about.
I'm not kidding you.
Image.
Last week, I'm sold out completely on stickers. I just shipped my last one tonight. Every other TeePublic order has been Otogunga After Dark. That's what I'm calling it.
Oh boy.
So lots of sexy Jar Jar is going to be walking around.
There are some weird fetishes on the internet.
Nothing wrong with capitalizing on
them. That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
Just because I'm pretty doesn't mean I'm stupid.
And you can find all of those links on our show notes when you listen to the podcast. All right. Yes, Jeff is now a permanent co-host of the show. We'll still be able to bring in Zach and Josh and whoever here and there, but we are now a three-way podcast, 3 co-hosts. So
wait a minute. Nobody told me about that.
Now you know.
We're a throuple. You didn't know?
Live on the show.
How to lose subscribers and fill our Patreon.
All right, let's jump into this week's show, and we will start with the menu.
The menu stars Ralph Fiennes and Anya Taylor-Joy in the story of a high-end restaurant on an island run by Chef Slowick, played by Ralph Fiennes. It is a restaurant experience, meaning that there are limited customers paying a great deal of money to have a food experience. And as we're told by a character played by Nicholas Hoult, this whole menu is a story that is being told, and you have to eat to the end to find out what it's all about. The only guest that wasn't supposed to be there is Anya Taylor-Joy's character, and she got this invitation very late in the game after Nicholas Holt's date fell through, and she is our entryway character. She's the audience surrogate, and what's brilliant about Anya Taylor-Joy is that she could have played any of these characters, even the chef. She's just that brilliant, and but she chose to play this rather traditional character, and she gives this a non-traditional sort of element. How she comes to be here is an important part of the plot, and she definitely kind of ruffles the feathers of Ralph Fiennes' character, and the two of them working together are just so brilliant. The way that they play off of each other, how she's sort of disrupted his plan, how he's adjusting to having her there, and what she means to what is about to unfold on this night is just, it's all brilliantly put together. This movie is exceptional. The more time I sit with this movie, the more I love it, especially the ending, which really, I mean, just brilliant, just brilliant. In my review, I described it as if oh God, Gordon Ramsay were a Ari Aster character. Like that's the level of kind of weird we're going for here. And I dig that so much. This is absolutely phenomenal. I love this movie, and I can't recommend it enough.
Jeff, did you see it?
I saw it. I actually got 3 movies last weekend, and this was almost my favorite. It's a toss up, but this is like the blackest of black comedies. I don't think the people that were there was maybe 4 or 5 other people in the theater when I saw it, as I saw it at 10 o'clock in the morning, because why not? I don't think they really got that it was supposed to be a really dark comedy, but there were times when I was laughing out loud, and the guy who was sitting closest to me just kept looking at me like, "What the fuck is wrong with you? This isn't funny. This is terrible. This is horrible what they're doing." I thought it was so good. The cast, everybody in the cast was just amazing. From Anya Taylor-Joy, I will watch anything with Hong Chow. She's so good, and the like simmering rage underneath her character that she finally gets to let out later in the film is just, it's perfect. She's just, even the douchebag guys, I was just like, oh, what's going on? What's their thing? What's their thing? And that ending, I really thought that it was, I'm glad it wasn't, but I thought it was going to be the conventional ending where it's, it's a dream, it's a joke, it's not really going to happen. And then it happened, and wow.
No kidding, Bob. And this is not a spoiler. You'll never predict where this is going to end, but it reminded me of the ending of Midsummer in just the way I reacted to it and how I took it in, and the way it just kind of floored me. It's that level of good. Not that this movie is not necessarily as good as Midsummer. It's not on that level, but that ending though is on that level for sure. I actually wrote an entire spoiler article. If you've seen the movie or you're not going to bother to see the movie, I did do a spoiler article. It's all about the ending of this movie, because I think the ending of this movie is absolutely genius and darkly hilarious.
I've been out of town for almost 2 weeks in a row, and one of the reasons you allowed me to skip last week's episode so I could go see this, and I didn't. I got home Sunday on 3 hours of sleep. I actually just drove out, bought tickets to this, and was falling asleep driving. It was so dangerous that I was like, I gotta turn around and go home. I want to see this so bad. My big fear was like, this is going to be David Fincher's The Game, like kind of the lane. Oh, the game the whole time or whatever. So it's exciting to know that it's not that. So I'm really excited to see this. I just don't know when I'm going to get to, and that frustrates the hell out of me. So this in your top 10, Sean? I know you sent a link. I didn't open it.
I've got 26 movies right now or 27 now, that are very close to being in my top 10. I've got to sort those out. So it's definitely on that list for sure. Whether it makes it into the top 10, still working on it.
It is a hell of a year.
It is a great year, I gotta say.
So I am obviously, from being on the show before, the big horror fan, and I'm a total easy lay when it comes to horror movies. And this was like an Ari Aster horror movie, in that there's just this sense of dread throughout the whole thing. And unlike Ari Aster, this has laughs that you kind of hate yourself for laughing. And as of right now, this is definitely in my top 10.
Well, I mean, I've heard Ari Aster claim his movies are comedies.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, that's.
I think I'm amused by Ari Aster in many ways. That's for sure. But yeah,
I think the only way that this movie could have been better is if the Anya Taylor-Joy part, Margot, was played by Lindsay Lohan from Falling for Christmas. I'm sorry, I just had to do a callback to last week's episode.
Anything
Can
else?
you imagine that though?
No, I don't want to. That would have to set the movie at a Hardee's.
And she'd have to be chain smoking through the whole meal.
What's wrong with that?
Did you see Falling for Christmas, Bob?
No, but I worked at Hardee's.
Well, okay. Hey, chef, come here. Why do you want to talk to me in your office, chef? That's Lindsay Lohan playing this part.
All right.
Sorry, this is going to be a Lindsay Lohan bashing podcast from now on, just so you know.
She's still relevant. I know she did have a Netflix movie, but that
it was a hit.
It wasn't a hit.
Yeah,
good for
yeah.
them.
There's a lot of dumb people in this world. Was
it as big a hit as the Ryan Reynolds Will Ferrell one?
I mean, probably as big. Yeah, I mean,
really,
people really barely even noticed that Spirited came out. So people know about Falling for Christmas.
People love Christmas movies. We should do an entire episode that's just talking about Christmas movies that people love that aren't that great.
Yeah,
You have to hear Sean talk about National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation anymore. All
Speaking of Netflix,
right. Let's move on to Glass Onion and Knives Out Mystery.
Glass Onion, A Knives Out Mystery is a new movie. Ryan Johnson, the director, of course, directed the first Knives Out, and it's just another terrific detective story. This time, it's a billionaire played by Edward Norton, who has his own island, which is a weird theme for this week, having her own island. He is throwing a party, a murder mystery for his friends, where he's having them solve his murder, and he's somehow accidentally or otherwise he's invited the world's greatest detective, Benoit Blanc, Daniel Craig, alongside all of his friends, including his former business partner, who has a lot of bones to pick with him. She's not particularly happy being his ex-business partner. That's Janelle Monáe. And Janelle Monáe is Oscar level good in this movie. She is absolutely brilliant. Not that Daniel Craig isn't. Daniel Craig's fantastic. He's turned this from being just a one-off in Knives Out to a character that honestly will go on for decades if he wants it to. This character can carry on forever. It's that level of, this is Mrs. Marple, this is Poirot, this is all of those kind of characters, but newly found in this performance by Daniel Craig. But truly, I love Janelle Monáe gave the best performance in the movie, in a movie filled with the really great performances. It also includes Dave Bautista as a Twitch streamer and Kate Hudson as a failing former model and actress. You've got just this amazing cast. I mean, just absolutely incredible cast that carries off this mystery that never goes where you expect it to. Honestly, you go in and you think that the billionaire guy is the one who's going to die, and maybe that's not. But it's just so, it goes in so many different directions. Edward Norton, of course, is in this as well. He's the billionaire. He's absolutely brilliant. Could not be better, combining the worst elements of Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, but not doing so in a way that, he's not doing it in a way that's mean. It's not mean. We get mean late, but initially he's just so very committed to playing the character and playing it well, and just absolutely ingeniously deconstructed as the story goes on. The intricacy of Ryan Johnson's writing just gets me every time. His construction, the way he doesn't condescend to the audience, he layers things in there and lets you see things and lets you think about them, but he doesn't underline the point. He moves on very quickly. It's very skillful. It's a mystery that is so involving and so engaging. Just everything, and it's so funny. It is so funny. There is a line in this movie, and somebody else on Twitter called this out even before I saw it, about sweatpants from Kate Hudson, that is legitimately the biggest laugh of all of 2022. It is just massive laughs that moment. When you realize what the joke is, and you have to realize what the joke is yourself, it's just genius. I just love it. And I love this movie.
Jeff?
This was, of the three movies that I saw this weekend in the theater, this was my favorite. I saw this first thing on Wednesday afternoon. I got out of work early and I went straight to the theater. I could not wait. I'm not a huge Kate Hudson fan. I could take her or leave her, basically. I was like, okay, now I just want to go ahead and watch everything that she's ever done that I ever missed. She was the casting was absolutely perfection throughout. I mean, Janelle Monáe is just, I love her as a singer, and I've loved her for a long time, but seeing her in this role, I forgave Annabellum. I was just like, whoa, what? She's just so good in it. And I'm a Ryan Johnson fanboy, I guess. I don't care about Daniel Craig either, but I could watch him play this part for the rest of my life. The Stephen Sondheim and Angela Lansbury, R.I.P. Cameo was, I'm not kidding you, I laughed so hard because this movie takes place during the pandemic, during 2020, and they were doing, it was funny watching them do exactly the same thing I was doing with my family for a good chunk of the pandemic. And
it just seems like too. There also, I believe Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Natasha Lyonne are also in that scene, and that just seems like he just found the perfect circle for Benoit Blanc to be in.
Exactly. I also liked the subtle nod to. I don't know if we're going to spoil it, but
we don't want to spoil anything because Bob hasn't seen it yet.
The other person who does a small cameo tells you a lot about Benoit Blanc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that it's been out there a little bit on social media, but one of the people who was sitting closest to me was like, "Wait, what?" When they put it together, I was just like, "Yeah, that's right." The little cameo, the cameos are just chef's kiss. I just could not stop thinking about this movie all through Wednesday and Thursday and up until I went to see the menu, and then I started just thinking about that. So this was my favorite movie this weekend so far. Just could not stop thinking about it. Couldn't almost resubscribe to Netflix to watch it again. I think that Netflix should have let this go a couple more weeks before they put it on their streaming. They could have just minted money, because I've heard so much good stuff about this, and the word of mouth, people are like, "Oh, I can't wait to see that. I want to see it in the theater." Well, tomorrow is your last day, or today, whenever this drops, it's like, all right. So it's so clever. And I'm a huge fan of mysteries, Agatha Christie, Murder, She Wrote, cozy mysteries, and this is almost a cozy mystery because there's no, Benoit Blanc he's smart, but he's a little homespun. I really wish they'd done. Ryan Johnson at one point said, somebody said you should inexplicably have him do a different accent in every movie, and Ryan Johnson said that was something that he had actually thought about. I would have died laughing if they had done that. If he had just done like Russian or something instead of Southern, or it would have been hilarious. But yeah, watch this movie, even if you have to watch it on Netflix. Totally worth it. Watch it on the biggest screen you can watch it on. Don't watch it on your phone, because the visuals in this movie, the Greek setting, the artwork. I mean, obviously I'm an artist, and it made me want to paint again because there was so much good artwork everywhere. It's gorgeous. It's well acted. It's well written, to the point where I watch a ton of Murder, She Wrote and Columbo and all that kind of stuff, and can usually pick out who the killer is within the first, couple scenes. I did not pick up on this one until they started laying it out, and then I was like, oh shit. And then they go back and they show you everything, and it's like, of course.
Mm-hmm.
How did I not know that?
So clever. Yeah, the misdirections are strong. The direction is incredible. Ryan Johnson is just masterful, and doesn't get enough credit.
Yeah, no, I thought Knives Out was fantastic too. You couldn't tell really till they started playing that out what was going on. I think Ryan Johnson's one of my favorite directors. I mean, he made the best Star Wars movie there is. A Star Wars movie for non-Star Wars fans. Do you need to see Knives Out to get this movie?
Not at all. No.
It helps introduce you to him, but there's no overlap other than him. It's like you could watch Knives Out after this and just, it wouldn't make any difference.
All right, because my family has not seen Knives Out, but I will be watching on Netflix. Unfortunately, I feel bad doing that, but that's just the nature of the beast. But I really want to see this one as well, and I'm glad it's good. It's exciting. Are they making another one?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. A third one, maybe. I think if he got the idea, I bet they would just go on, and I would be fine with that.
Just keep doing this, Daniel Craig. Just keep doing this.
As long as Ryan Johnson's doing it too, right?
Yeah.
I don't think they would do it without him. I think that, based on how clever he writes things and how, he just, aside there, like even Looper, there's a few plot holes here and there, and Last Jedi, the way he writes is just a very specific way. And if they tried to do a Knives Out movie without him, I don't think it would work.
You have to have his attention to detail. You have to have his, the care that he takes. I mean, you look at all of his plots, the intricacy is symbolic of what he does. And I'm awed by his level of detail, the little touches that the little choices that he makes. There's a scene early on we talked about a little bit where Benoit Blanc is in the bath, and just the choice of a hat that he's wearing is just kind of genius. I mean, that's the level of detail we're talking about here.
That's awesome. All right, let's move on to She Said.
She Said stars Carey Mulligan and Zoe Kazan in the story of how the New York Times broke the story about Harvey Weinstein, the head of Miramax, one of the biggest power players in all of Hollywood. The open secret is that he was abusing his power with women. He was, essentially is now a convicted rapist. We need to say that. He is a criminal. And he was a criminal. He was a criminal for a very long time, from at least the late 80s all the way through this year, where he is currently now in jail. The story goes that finally women started to speak out about him, about making accusations about him, and people started to take it seriously. It took a pair of female reporters to actually start taking it seriously and to start the ball rolling on finally people questioning his use of his power. And I find that this movie is pretty great in many ways. It's symbolic of all the president's men and spotlight. It is just in terms of allowing journalists to collect facts and present those facts. And that's really what the movie is gathering facts, gathering evidence, and presenting that evidence and facts. And really that's what great journalism should be, is collecting the evidence and showing it, not necessarily making it an opinion, because this is really not an opinion that Harvey Weinstein is a criminal. He is in fact a criminal. He was also provably an abuser. And it took as long as it did for him to be brought down is a telling of a tale of all of our society for the past 30 years. He came about in a time where behavior like his was excused because, this is how it's always been. Men have always been in power, so he wants to take a shower in front of a woman and have her watch him. That's the way it was when he was coming up. That is not okay. That was never okay. It wasn't okay in 1972. It wasn't okay in 1992. It's not okay in 2022. This was never okay. I know that shouldn't need to be said, but it still needs to be said to this date, because there are still people who defend the actions of people like Harvey Weinstein, who, for whom consent was never a question. He just automatically assumed consent when he walked into a room. That is not okay. And finally, just that this movie presents that so very, very well, finally making that very, very plain in a way that's going to be very easy to understand and easy to follow. A lot of people really need to see this movie. A lot of people did not see this movie, to the point where Harvey Weinstein was quoted as celebrating the fact that the movie didn't do well, which, why anybody fucking asked his fucking opinion, it really pisses me off that anybody bothered to fucking ask what he thought of this. Because I don't give a fuck what he thinks about this fucking movie. I don't really care. Why anybody asked him, why anybody asked for a quote from him on this is embarrassing as a culture. I'll say that.
Was Ronan Farrow's character in it at all, or they leave him out completely?
He was
working simultaneously as these two reporters were for NBC, and his story kind of got held up a little bit as they're putting their story out. So they all coalesced together eventually. They weren't sabotaging each other or working against each other. They're all working toward the same thing. They just weren't working on it together.
Yeah, he did a piece for the New Yorker, and they mention it in the movie that he was doing it at the same time. And oh shit, we gotta hurry and get this done before they do. And then If you're familiar at all with the behind the scenes stuff that they didn't touch on in this, they actually, NBC scuttled him and the report because they bowed to pressure, unlike the New York Times did. So he went to the New Yorker, and that's where his comes in. And then he wrote the book Catch and Kill, which goes. They talk about trying to get Rose McGowan to go on the record here, and she ended up going on the record with Ronan Farrow.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, it's totally worth the read too. It's disgusting.
I don't want to call it a great book, but it's a must read in a lot of ways.
I love the inclusion of Ashley Judd here. Ashley Judd, who did speak with these reporters in real life. She's also included here in this movie and appears as herself. And that really adds a level of authenticity that the movie needed from that perspective. Because otherwise you've got actresses that are not well known playing people who are, part of Miramax, but were not well known. It helps to have that face, that focus. It helped the story to have that face and focus when they wrote it. And so that was a great detail to have, and really helps make this movie. I just can't make the point enough, though, how important a movie like this is. And it's unfortunate that so many people didn't see it, because Me Too is receding into history now, and it's unfortunate. Just as fast as our culture moves, it's as if you can just kind of shrink away for a little while, and then you're allowed back in. And of course, Elon Musk now holding the door open for everybody who wants to re-enter culture now. It's unfortunate that a movie like this doesn't get the audience it deserves, because it deserves people seeing it. People need an education. They need to be reminded that the behavior of a Harvey Weinstein, so indicative of the behavior. The thing that really kind of stuck in my head that the movie can't address, I don't think there's any way for the movie to address it, is that we're talking about the New York Times, a company that has thousands of employees, is owned by multimillionaires. There probably is a culture there that is just like the culture that brought about Harvey Weinstein. Everybody there is portrayed as being very professional and welcoming of everyone, but you can only imagine that there was this culture there too, and it never gets addressed. And that did stick in my mind. But also, you can't say that, like, if you just go around saying, well, that's what it was like everywhere, then I guess you're just using their justification as well. But I did think about that a lot.
Do you think, are they going to do a Catch and Kill movie, or does this, I don't know.
They could.
He definitely addresses that.
I'm going to say this, though. I think this movie was well acted, well directed. It was in depth. It should have been a streaming limited series, for the simple reason that it was very long, and there were a lot of threads that you had to pick up on. Some of the episodes in the movie could have been stretched out a little bit and like fleshed out, given a little more weight, and because it seemed very long at times, but it also seemed very rushed at times.
Good
and I
point.
think
one of the things that could have even helped the movie is to have actually gone in the room. They had a character who portrays Harvey Weinstein in terms of his body, in terms of just kind of seeing him a little bit. I think we could have gone further into those rooms where those women are, and make us in the audience just as uncomfortable as those women were, by placing us in the position where we're there watching him say, hey, watch me in the shower, hey, watch me jerk off, hey, just show me your tits, that kind of thing. If we were in the room actually seeing that, I think it could have been a little bit more powerful. As it is, they stick specifically to the facts, which is that's a different movie, what I just mentioned. This one is about straight ahead, just the what they can report as fact of what happened.
Yeah, you're talking about the Ryan Murphy version of it, American Crime Story. Yeah. But I think that actually, as it is now, it would have been great as a 4-episode miniseries on Hulu or wherever, and I think more people would have seen it, which I think is more important than it. Whether it's a little long or it's a little sped up in spots. I think it's great that it was released in theaters, and I think that shows that people take it seriously. But to get the audience that I think this deserves, because it was incredibly well acted. I even like Zoe Kazan for a change. Carrie Mulligan, I don't know if it's like she just, I'm not going to do a streaming show or whatever, or if they just was always a movie, but with the cast that they had and the kind of episodic nature of the movie,
Mhm.
I think it would have been an outstanding streaming show. And I'm usually like, shorten it, make it a movie.
Right.
But I just think that this was too important to.
A chilling thought on that. Is it easier to bury this in a movie theater as opposed to putting it out on streaming? I think it might be easier to try and bury a movie like this, putting it out over Thanksgiving, a time when families are together and they're not going to see a 2.5 hour drama about sexual assault and I think there's something to that. I'm not saying that the company behind this buried this movie, but there's an argument to be made that it's a lot easier to bury a movie like this in a cinema than it is to bury it on Netflix.
I don't think so. I don't see that as a motive, because every time I flip through IMDb, and I do that a lot, there was an ad for this. There were ads all over for it on Peacock, and everything I watched, there was an ad for this movie. So I don't think they were trying to bury it, because it was pretty well advertised. I just think that this is and this is the time, like Christmas, Thanksgiving, it's award season.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there will be some awards, at least nominations for this. I
That's ironic, considering that's what Harvey Weinstein is known for.
Right. I just think that
he's not known for that anymore, but
not anymore. Yeah.
What he was known for before. Now he's known as a rapist. But
yeah, who's going to die in prison?
He's been known as that probably, but
I mean, this will be the movie where it'll allow the people that did support him and ignore all the facts, and they can use this as, oh, I'm sorry, here we're better now. Here's this movie. That's the only, and I know that's not the right attitude to have. But
that is a good point though too. Hollywood lets a movie like this through, and they can go, well, we made she said, so there you go. Hollywood apologizes.
I think that what bugged me was we got Ashley Judd, and she was very powerful, and it took me a second to realize this is just a few years ago.
Yeah,
that all this came out. I mean, this was just a couple years ago. And I thought, oh, Ashley Judd's playing herself at much younger, and then I was like, no, wait, this was just 3 or 4 years ago that this all started to really come to a head. Yeah. I wish that some of the other actresses that that were named in the movie had done their had been in it. And
there's a weird detail in the movie, Bob, about Harvey Weinstein was obsessed about Gwyneth Paltrow. Right. Every question that he had was about, have you talked to Gwyneth? Is this about Gwyneth? Every one of them. And it's such a weird detail. And she's not, unfortunately, not in the movie.
And I think that if there was a scene where they're like, oh, Gwyneth will be right out. And I thought, oh, she that's
what I thought too.
Going to do this. Great. Because there was kind of a narrative going around that she kind of downplayed all this when it came out, and she wasn't as vocal about it, and it was everybody else telling her story but her. And I was like, oh, that would be so great if she would put down the goop for a minute and be a part of this. But it's I was just disappointed.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, and you guys said something early on when I asked about Ronan Farrow and how they addressed the fact that they were trying to beat him to the release before the New Yorker did. And would it have worked better if, like Jeff said, it was more of a streaming series, and then you weave the two stories together where you go back and forth? Because everybody knows his. Like, I knew more about his version than theirs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think it gets a bigger audience. If I do feel like I'm sure he'll do a movie at some point in a podcast of the book. They are trying to make money with this too, unfortunately. If they were able to work together and make a show out of that, it seems like that would have been amazing. an amazing show and very effective and powerful, but I don't know.
I think that this, I would like to have seen it from the female perspective in a longer format. His book was good, and he got to talk, he got some access to some of the people, but I really would have liked to have seen this on TV. And they could have done an episode where he comes in, even if he plays himself, because the son of Woody Allen, quote unquote, and Mia Farrow. Sorry, Frank Sinatra has released his well. He could have even come in and done a cameo and played himself, and they could have done that. I think that we're going to get to a point where all of these books and all these exposés are going to come out, and people are going to be like, oh my God, it's Me Too again. Oh my God, let it go. All that, the chuds on Twitter and how they are. But I think that it's an important story. I just wanted to see more of this one. So I felt like you were getting parts of the movie were bogged down by their personal lives, but then their personal lives, you wanted to know more about it. But I felt like there could have been fleshed out a little more in a show than here.
I do think this is a very good movie, and certainly is what I hope people will find eventually. Hopefully with an awards campaign.
Yeah.
All right. All Quiet on the Western Front.
All Quiet on the Western Front is a movie set during World War One. It is from the German perspective of World War One, and honestly, I can't talk much about it. I fell asleep.
Hey, me too.
Me too.
I got about halfway through it, and I'm like, this is boring.
I was about 30 minutes in. I'm like, I can't tell any of these people apart. They're all covered in mud or blood, and yeah, war is bad.
Yeah. I thought about looking up on Wikipedia, what happened, but
World War One, the Germans lost.
Right. All right, cool.
The thing about World War One stories is there's not a lot of new things out there. Like 1917, I think that's where they have that did so well. Let's kind of reignite that. To me, the most interesting World War One era story that I've seen since 1917 was Pearl. I mean, I started to watch this. I borrowed a friend's Netflix, and I was like, you know what? I don't necessarily like war movies, and I really don't want to see something that's been hashed and rehashed and rehashed. So
I just kept looking at the runtime, and I'm like, this isn't getting any shorter.
I mean, the theme, I guess. I mean, it's when you look at that title, All Quiet on the Western Front, it's a title of a movie that I'm not sure if it won an Oscar or was nominated for an Oscar, and that was all about the patriotic greatness of American military might, and naming a movie All Quiet on the Western Front, and setting it up from the side that lost, and there's certainly more to this movie in terms of talking about how pointless war is. Like, that's one of the great things that is coming about, like a movie called Benediction, which came out earlier this year, was just quite a good movie. Talked about it a little bit, how pointless World War One, even World War II kind of were in terms of just the ways it was fought, both sides, the Germans and the English, just throwing human beings at each other, just whipping human beings at bullets. That's what they were doing. The strategy was just send a bunch of poor people to die, and eventually one of us will win. And it was all about, especially on the German side, it was all about ego. It was all about power and consolidating power and taking over a portion of a country. And it got me thinking, like, one of the best things about being about America centered where it is that there isn't much for us to take over. Because if we were in Europe, with our leaders, totally taking over countries. We're totally bowling over other countries. We're in Canada. There's nothing for us in Canada. Like this, Canada's very tiny. Most of it is just woods and mountains and very cold. Mexico, there's just not much to take. Nothing against them. They're wonderful countries. There's just not much there for us in terms of what we could dominate. But Europe, we would want that. If we were there with our leadership. And that's kind of one of the things I thought about here as I was dozing off.
Yeah, I don't have much more to say on it either. Bones and all.
Bones and All is the latest from director Luca Guadagnino, the director of Call Me By Your Name, and the terrible Suspiria remake. This one stars Taylor Russell as a young woman who, as a teenager, realizes that she is a cannibal. She's always been a cannibal from a very young age. She just her dad covered it up as best as he could, and it was so traumatic for her that a lot of it she didn't remember, and she's able to control it for quite some time until she goes to a friend's house to spend the night and ends up biting off this friend's finger, and suddenly she's fully exposed as someone who was born as a cannibal. Her father packages her up and takes her out of the town and gets her out of there very quickly so she can't be arrested or found. And then he abandons her with a tape and tells her, hey, when you were like 3, you ate a babysitter. Like, this is something I can't control, that you can't control. And frankly, I just don't know what to do anymore. So he leaves her to her own devices. He gives her directions to where her mother may be somewhere in Minnesota. She's somewhere in the Midwest, and she's going to journey there. Along the way, she meets a guy named Sully, played by Mark Rylance, who I described in my review as his character. He's a fellow cannibal who introduces himself by saying that he could smell her from over a block away, which is incredibly creepy, especially as Mark Rylance plays it. But it's also like they explain it as something that all cannibals can do in this universe. But in my review, I referred to him as an A24 version of Chop Top. Like, that's the kind of way that Mark Rylance plays this character. But she meets him, she feeds with him, and then she runs away from him as fast as possible because he's a real creep. There she runs into Timothy Chalamet, who's another cannibal who's a little bit more ethical, I guess. He eats bad people. And they begin to form a bit of a romance because they are close together in age, and they're both cannibals. I don't know what the movie was going for. It's like, I don't know if it's a horror movie. I don't know if it's supposed to be a teen romance. I'm not sure what the whole cannibal thing is meant to represent, because they don't have a choice. They're born cannibals. It's not like people were comparing this to Bonnie and Clyde and Badlands, and it's like, those are criminals who chose to be criminals. These are people who are cannibals who were born cannibals and have no control over it. Crime is a choice. You can choose whether or not you commit a crime. So I didn't buy the metaphor there. Also, if you're going to compare it to Badlands, I'm just going to watch Badlands then.
Right.
And Terrence Malick, it's an incredible film. Like, watch it if you haven't seen it. So I really didn't find anything to sell this movie. It's finally made. Luca Guadagnino is a terrific director. It's a good-looking movie. It has a lot of elements I could recommend, but I just don't know what this is supposed to be about. I don't get it. I don't find the movie particularly romantic. It's not Twilight for cannibals. It's not.
Well, it seemed more to me like it would be like one of those foreign vampire movies, like Let the Right One In or something like that, more so than a Bonnie and Clyde. But those are good.
Now, could it just be a cannibal movie without deeper subtext?
I guess maybe, but I still don't understand what the purpose of it was. What is it? Just they eat people. Okay. How they decide who they eat is their moral compass. I don't know. Maybe.
So you just said, out of curiosity, just a question. You said it's not not Twilight for cannibals. Is it worse than that?
No.
Okay. You weren't very clear, and I was like, huh.
It's much more artful than the Twilight movies, I would say. The performances are stronger, the characterizations are a little bit better, but why do it? What is it? What does making them cannibals say about them?
It's a cool title.
I was talking about the title a little bit in my review, saying like Bones and All is a term that is cannibals in this universe use. Michael Stuhlbarg explains it as something that cannibals can do. They can eat every aspect of a person in this universe. So it's not like, I mean, in regular cannibalism where they throw the bones away, in this universe, they can eat the bones. That's how strong their will to eat is. So bones and all is like making a full commitment to cannibalism. You can go bones and all.
Well, even like in regular cannibalism, it is a choice. Just they seem to mess that part up in this movie.
Yeah, this is one I was going to see, and I got really busy Sunday night, and I didn't get a chance to see it. I've heard, well, my little my little group of Twitter friends, we always talk about horror movies and stuff, and this is one people were excited to see, and people who saw it liked it. But I'm not a particularly big fan of Timothée Chalamet. So it was kind of take it or leave it with him, but I heard really good I've heard good things about like all the performances and anything. I like Mark Rylance and Michael Stuhlbarg. I will eventually watch this, but I didn't feel particularly bad that I didn't rush out and see it first thing. So
yeah, I mean, all the technical aspects are there, and I'm in the minority of people who didn't like it. I think it's 84% positive on Rotten Tomatoes. Most critics did like this. I read a lot of reviews, like I said, a lot of comparisons.
Is he paused?
You there?
Or is it just me? Huh.
I don't know.
Must be Sean.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I didn't see it. I watched Murder, She Wrote instead that night. So
I watched the Will Ferrell, Ryan Reynolds, Chris's movie on the plane.
I haven't watched that yet.
I liked it. I mean, do you like Scrooged? Do you like Elf?
Yeah. I'm not a big, huge fan of Will Ferrell generally, but I do watch Elf once a year. That's always a Christmas staple. And I like Ryan Reynolds. I think he's fine.
I think they both work best when there's someone to feed off of, when they're not the main person, other than Deadpool, obviously was.
Yeah.
Will Ferrell specifically needs somebody else to feed off of, but even then he doesn't always work. But the two of them, I don't know, I think worked well together. I really like Scrooged, and it's kind of like mixing Elf and Scrooge together. I don't know if it'll be one you need to watch every year, but it was fun enough.
Yeah, it's on my Plex right now, kind of waiting to get a little more in the Christmas spirit before I watch it, I guess. Because like I said, Will Ferrell, I mean, he's fine.
Well, I'm with you though. There's times where I've heard that he gets off on being bad, like making dumb movies like that is entertaining to him, and that doesn't always work.
Well, I mean, yeah, he's known for doing off the wall stuff. Like his run on The Office, the 3 or 4 episodes that he was on there, was just unhinged.
Right.
It was just, what the fuck are you doing?
Right.
Not my favorite part, but still it was interesting at least.
Well, even that Hallmark or Lifetime movie made with Kristen Wiig, just like, this is just bad. And the whole thing, it's funny that they did it, I guess, but why watch it?
Well, when he was doing those commercials and he did one in Davenport, I was living in New York at the time, and I was like, what the fuck is he doing? It's just so random, it's just, I guess that's, his thing is being random. So
yeah,
I'll check it out eventually.
Let's see what we got next. You probably didn't see the Fabelmans, did you?
I did not.
Neither did I. What are your thoughts on that article, or what Sean's idea that Spielberg's not relevant anymore?
Well, I think he's very talented, and he has been. I think that this is one of those, he kind of does one for the public and one for himself. And this, when I before I knew it was Steven Spielberg, I watched the trailer and I was like, oh, this looks like it would be a Steven Spielberg movie. about him, about his growing up. And then it was like, oh, it's exactly what it is. I mean, um, I probably will see it, and I'll probably see it in the theater because I did enjoy his West Side Story. I watched that in the theater, and funny story. I was in Chicago last year for doing an art show, and my old roommates, I was staying with them, and they were like, "Hey, we're gonna go see West Side Story. Do you want to go?" And I said, "Sure." Well, the night before the show, I actually that night I stayed at a hotel, got zero sleep because there was a party going on down the hall. Got zero sleep. I was so tired, and I was just desperately trying to keep my eyes open for West Side Story and failing miserably throughout. But I enjoyed it enough that I watched it streaming later and really, really dug it. But it was unnecessary. And I don't know why Steven Spielberg would do that.
Right.
It baffled me. And this is more what I see him, I see his heart in it a little more than just a retread of something that we've already done.
See, I think he's.
Am I back?
Okay. Yeah, you're back.
Oh, good.
We kept the show going.
Okay.
My opinion is Spielberg. I think he's great, but at the same time, I think he's super overrated. And I don't think that's a bad thing. But when you're that popular and that big, it's hard not to be overrated. If that makes sense. But
he's made some of the biggest movies of all time.
Right.
I don't know if that means he's overrated or if he could just rest on his laurels and never make another movie, and everybody would talk about how great he is. But do you get into the diminishing returns of stuff like this where it's like, oh, it's not an IP? Right. He does, like some of his existing IP stuff, great, but Sean.
Right. So I asked the question: is Steven Spielberg irrelevant? Not as a criticism of him. I think it's not a question of whether or not he's a great director. Of course, I think he's a great director. I think the issue of relevance when it comes to him is his topics. The topics he chooses these days are not necessarily relevant to a wide audience. And this story, West Side Story, as much as it may be beloved in many circles, is not a wide, it doesn't have a lot of cultural relevance still to this day. It just doesn't. That's not a knock on the movie. It's not a knock on the quality of the movie. It's just not particularly relevant. And the idea here, he's making a movie about his childhood. And again, we're going back to references like The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance and The Greatest Show on Earth. And again, as beloved as those movies are in many circles, they're not relevant. And that it kind of might explain why people today, especially younger audiences, simply don't relate to what Steven Spielberg is doing anymore. It doesn't make it bad. It just means that you can't blame a younger audience. And something I read was somebody pretty much blaming a younger audience for not supporting this movie and not supporting one of our greatest filmmakers of all time. That's a ridiculous argument. Kids aren't going to find appeal in this. They're just not. It's not meant for them. This is Steven Spielberg kind of jerking himself off a little bit. If I'm being honest, this is him just enjoying his nostalgia, his own childhood, the things that inspired him. And that's wonderful, but it's not relevant to people who aren't of the cult of Spielberg, his age. John Ford is not somebody that is relevant to a younger audience. Should he be? Maybe. Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, there's a lot of movies of his you should absolutely see. David Lynch plays John Ford in the movie, by the way. And that's a big moment for this character, is meeting him. And it's a great scene. But again, there's going to be anybody who's, under the age of 25, who is still learning about film and getting better and growing, probably doesn't know that he's talking to an absolute film legend. You can pan across all the movie posters you want and show all the movie posters with these titles and go, that's vaguely familiar to me from passing it on television, but it's not going to tell a lot of people, anything about the guy. So that's the question. It's really just kind of a knock on people who think this movie should be appealing to kids. or appealing to a younger audience. You can't you can't make a movie set in the 1950s and 60s and say that kids should absolutely see this and absolutely should be interested. It's not relevant. Your kids, Bob, not going to give a fuck. They're not going to know anything about this movie, about any of the references it's making. They'll recognize elements of maybe family, and those are nice things. But again, I don't think that's a well fleshed out part of the story either. So the story here is set in the 1950s. 1952 is where kind of we enter into it, where 8-year-old kid goes to see The Greatest Show on Earth, the Academy Award-winning Best Picture, and is fascinated by the end sequence, which is this amazing train wreck that was staged using models and actual staging with actual actors. And it's brilliant. It's the reason why the movie won Best Picture. It's still remembered as one of the least deserving Best Pictures of all time, but it did win Best Picture because of that incredible ending.
Behind Crash, right?
Yeah. He sees that and he wants to recreate it. So he gets a toy train for Hanukkah and begins recreating it using his dad's camera and trying to figure out how it happened. And that's the genesis of his love of film, encouraged by his mom, Mitzi, played by Michelle Williams, who represents the artistic side of his family, while his dad is an engineer who goes on to work for IBM and is on the cutting edge of developing computers. And that's the technical side, and those two sides coming together to form this one guy, this Sam Fableman character. It's good. Steven Spielberg is an incredible director, so of course it's beyond competent. It's incredibly well made. Paul Dano and Michelle Williams are amazing. I just don't see anything necessarily that brings it all together. There's no moment of catharsis. There's a lot of people who reviewed this movie and talked about how they wish they'd seen the movie that comes after this, where Sam Fableman goes on to become Steven Spielberg and making movies, in the 1960s and in the 70s and creating the blockbuster. Like, they'd say that's a better movie, and perhaps, maybe, I don't know, but that's not the movie he made. You can't review the movie he didn't make. You have to review the movie that he made. The movie that he made is fine. It's a fine movie in so many ways. Like, Michelle Williams is lovely. She gives a great performance. I don't think there's anything in here that is particularly insightful or even memorable, really. The key elements that stood out to me are the references. Like, The Greatest Show on Earth is both referenced as something that inspired him, but also it's reminiscent of how it's symbolic of many things in the movie. How, a circus is one way when the public sees it, and it's a different sort of chaos behind the scenes, which is kind of reminiscent of a family, where you see a family in a picture that looks like the happiest family in the world, but behind the scenes it's a chaotic mess, and there's an elephant pooping everywhere, and just pure chaos behind the scenes.
What kind of family is that?
A circus family. Just symbolism. The show you see versus the show you don't see, which is the family you see versus the family part you don't see. Then of course you have the reference. There's a reference strongly in the movie to The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, which is famous for the line "Print the legend," and that's essentially what Steven Spielberg is doing here. He's printing the legend of Steven Spielberg, which is shaped and molded and crafted as opposed to how it probably really happened, which is why he's not, the character isn't named Spielberg. This is a lightened up version in many ways, as it just doesn't get very serious. And without those more serious elements, I felt like there was just something lacking. It's too airy, it's too light, it's too easy to take, and everybody gets off a little bit too easy. And that to me kind of leaves the movie just a little middling for me.
I guess that's kind of how I feel about Spielberg in general, with the exception of maybe Jaws. I was Schindler's List, but I don't know. I just feel like his movies are too easy. They're definitely huge, and he's a great director, but he's like the U2 of filmmakers. I don't know.
So I saw E.T. when it came out, and I saw it in the theater. Was deeply affected by it and the toys, of course. But I saw it as an adult, and I was like, okay, and I don't know if it's because I saw it when I was 10 or what, but this is what it felt like to be a kid. The bickering in the family and the divorced mom. I didn't have a divorced mom, but that, that kind of chaos at home that you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
and then you throw an even bigger monkey wrench into it, and it seemed like there was a sense of wonder to that movie even as an adult, whereas I'm looking at the poster for the Fablemans right now, and I've seen the trailer a couple times, and it kind of seems forced, and I'm worried that if I seeing it in the theater that it feels forced. Is that true?
Not necessarily. I don't think it's necessarily forced. I think there are elements of Michelle Williams' performance that people probably consider a little broad.
Okay.
But she's playing off of Paul Dano, who's playing his character very narrowly, very straight guy, with the glass, the very 1950s dad guy. So she comes off even more broad just based off of what he's doing. And unfortunately, he seems to intend the Seth Rogen character to bridge the gap between the two of them, and I just don't think that came through. And without that character not quite working for me, also kind of holds the movie back a little bit.
Anything else on the Fablemans or Steven Spielberg?
I think he's brilliant, but he shaves the edges off of everything. And I think this is like I said, print the legend as opposed to the messy truths that might have a little sharp edge to them. Resurrection stars Rebecca Hall and Tim Roth in a movie that came out way earlier this year, but I only just saw it, so I wanted to talk about it because I fell for this movie hard. This movie is so fucking good. This is a horror film about a woman who is on the run from a man. She's been on the run from some time. They have a very awful past in which she was clearly groomed by him from a very young age, from early teens to her early 20s. She was under this man's thumb. He arrives back in her life, apparently having found her, but did he? There's a lot of ways in which the movie plays with reality, and the movie is gaslighting us as she is being gaslighted by him, and we don't know what to believe. Is she crazy? Is he actually doing this? And he has a line in this movie that you laugh at, but then they just don't let it go. Tim Roth is so good. He doesn't let this go. So they had a baby. They lost the baby. The baby was born. What happened to the baby is unclear. But Tim Roth says, he's in my stomach. He's with me always. He's with me. I'm carrying him with me right now. And obviously that's metaphoric, right? Right?
Nope.
I hope so.
It is. Tim Roth is so great at delivering the lines of just making that idea, planting that idea and building towards where this movie builds to. It's phenomenal. I love this movie.
It is such a weird, goofy idea that without Tim Roth and Rebecca Hall playing it as straight as they do, I don't think works. Mm-hmm. But they are so dedicated to what's happening that you just get lost in it and you just go on with it. You're never out of it. And it's just fascinating because it really is a goofy idea. And I know you're playing with reality and whatnot, but it takes the performances to make it work. And those two together, like it's almost like, why would you even sign up for this movie? Reading the script, what in the script made them want to do this? But whatever they did, whatever it was, they committed hard, and that's what makes this movie work.
The ever escalating tension of the story, from her just being this very confident, very assured businesswoman, slowly either she's coming apart and her reality is exploding in front of her, or this is all really happening. Rebecca Hall plays all of that so beautifully, and it just builds this tension from beginning to end to this catharsis that is just, did it happen? Did it not happen? I don't know. What did happen? It's so crazy. Was it all in her head? By the end, I still didn't know. And I just don't, the movie is so great at playing with that without making it seem like a gimmick. Awesome performance by Rebecca Hall. It's all on her to make this work. Tim Roth stuff, he's got a couple of great scenes. He's off screen for much of it.
Yeah.
When he's there, he's so impactful. You can't look away. But yeah, this is all on her, and she just makes it all work from beginning to end.
Yeah, if she doesn't deliver, this movie falls apart. I
Absolutely.
think.
Absolutely.
It's definitely worth watching.
I tried to watch it, couldn't get into my account to watch it, and I kept getting distracted. And I'm like, no, I really, really want to see this movie, so I'm definitely going to watch it. I love her. I mean, The Night House. She was
Great
so
movie.
good in that.
If you love her, you're gonna love this.
Absolutely. Yeah. She's maybe my favorite actress working today. She's just delivering. She makes such great choices. She's just so smart. Just never, I mean, just the little movies that she's made, like Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman, like just such
awesome.
a great performance, such a clever choice to have her play that role. And then Vicky Cristina Barcelona, which we're going to talk about, is just like she's the key to that film. She's what makes it all come together.
Iron Man 3, don't forget.
Iron Man 3, but she was fantastic in that role. She was terrific.
All right, well, let's jump to our classic Vicky Cristina Barcelona.
Well, we have to talk about it first, that this is a Woody Allen movie. You can't talk about Woody Allen without talking about Woody Allen, and credibly accused of being an abuser. And you have to make a decision here whether or not you can separate the art from the artist, and talk about a movie he made and talk about it as a work, while kind of leaving him out of the equation if you can, or not. It's up to you how you take that. You have to understand that you can praise a work of art without praising the person who made it, or at least parsing the idea that somebody who's awful can do something great. And I do think this is a pretty great movie. The idea here is that two women travel to Barcelona together, two best friends, played by Scarlett Johansson and Rebecca Hall. They meet up with an artist played by Javier Bardem, and all of them are brought to a point where they have to confront who they are as a person, what they want, and their future, their desires, their sexuality. It's all there, and they all have to confront these things and learn things about themselves. And all these characters grow in very unique ways. The performances here are just so phenomenal. There's a scene with Javier Bardem early on where he walks up to the table where Rebecca Hall and Scarlett Johansson are, and just casually talks about how he wants to take them away on a plane ride and take them out for dinner and take them to the arts and have sex with both of them, whether it's together or apart. And it's just very straightforward. And you're either shocked or you're charmed, or it's just strange. He just delivers it so perfectly that you easily buy in that, yeah, Scarlett Johansson's gonna fuck him right now, and Rebecca Hall might want to fuck him later. Like, I kind of wanted to fuck him too. Like, this is just that level of confidence that only a Spanish artist of unlimited means has. The way though that is not just merely a scene, but it's the start of revealing and unfolding these characters in unique different ways, is what the charm of the entire movie, because that scene sets up everything that comes about where these characters are revealing who they are as people. And then you have Penelope Cruz come into this movie, and she's like this hurricane of emotion that just comes raining down in the movie and takes it in a whole other direction that reveals her and Bardem and Scarlett Johansson throughout. I think this movie is incredible, even as it comes from a guy who is just probably an awful human being.
Yeah, I love this movie too. And I mean, I have a harder time with some of his stuff that's more autobiographical. The Annie Halls and the Manhattans, fantastic movies, but those are the ones that really trigger me with him. This one seems a little more removed from who he is. And maybe I'm just throwing that at the movie. I don't know, but what I thought I was getting and what this movie is it's way better than I thought it was going to be going in. And I saw it years ago. It was one of those ones where you go and you're expecting almost, some sort of sex movie, and it ends up being way more than that. And it really is quite good.
This is the first time I watched this. I specifically didn't watch it because I thought Woody Allen was such a creep. When you suggested watching it because of Rebecca Hall, I had no idea she was even in this movie. Name checked in the title because I assumed that Vicky and Christina were Penelope Cruz and Scarlett Johansson. Rebecca Hall was my favorite part of this movie. I mean, I get wanting to throw your entire life away for Javier Bardem. So I could, I could go with that. I really just, I was so confused going into it because I was like, wait a minute, where's Penelope? Oh, Penelope Cruz is the crazy ex who is just always at 11 with her emotions, always. Scarlett Johansson, for me, I always like feel like she's like so precious as far, like when I saw Under the Skin, I was just like, oh my God, Scarlett Johansson did this. Oh, I'm so scandalized, that she's walking around with everything hanging out. And she's not the prim and Janet Leigh type who I always kind of took her as from Hitchcock. I was glad that this wasn't one of those autobiographical Woody Allen movies because I don't think I could. I recently rewatched Shadows and Fog because I found it for $1 in a store, and I was like, oh, you know what? I've never really seen this, and I like Madonna, so I'll watch this and see how bad she is in it. And it was just that Woody Allen sensibility, and I was really hoping that didn't come into this. And it just a couple times during the narration it did, but overall I was really impressed and kind of shocked that how much I liked this. And it came down mostly to Rebecca Hall.
It's more thoughtful and mature than I had remembered. It definitely gives these characters a lot of room to breathe and to grow as human beings, and that's really more of what it's about. It talks about sex in a mature way that most movies don't, frankly speaking. That said, I went into it very worried that this was going to be, an abuser's conception of women, like a conception of women is just as a man sees them. And something about this, just the way he lets these actresses find the characters. Like for me, I don't think Scarlett Johansson finds this character until in the second act, when she's bringing an end to her relationship with Penelope Cruz and Javier Bardem. That's, I think, when she finds the character at that point. That monologue she gets there is really terrific. And meanwhile, you have Penelope Cruz, you've got this character that could be, a poorly conceived idea of mental health issues in a woman. And Penelope Cruz comes in and just is allowed to give this character so much charm and so much real life and so much experience and reality that she overcomes, this idea that this is just a man's conception of a crazy chick. And Rebecca Hall, of course, also just takes the character of a woman who's on the track to becoming, an everyday liberal white wine mom, essentially takes that and gives it a whole nother dimension by being forced into corners to where she has to figure out what it is that she truly wants out of life. And I think as a director here, he gives these women the opportunity to find these characters as opposed to him forcing an agenda upon them.
And that's, so I've always, thinking about Woody Allen movies, to me, the thing that I think draws people into him is the way he reveres his actresses. And, say what you will about him as a person and what an absolute fucker he is, but even going back and watching Mia Farrow in his movies, and all the women have agency that I don't think a lot of male directors and writers give their female characters. And I think it only gets better over time. Going back and watching something from 1990 and then going back and watching this from, just a few years ago, it's like, oh, they have more agency and they're more themselves. And that's because of him.
Yeah.
I hate to say that because he's such a piece of shit, but it's like he writes well for women and he directs well for women. And I think this is I think he is in touch with his feminine side when he's writing these characters enough to be sympathetic as opposed to just this is my fantasy of these women. And this could have been that kind of movie. This could have been this,
Absolutely.
where he just sees Scarlett Johansson and he writes a bunch of nude scenes for her. And, you same with Rebecca Hall and Penelope Cruz, but it actually seems like the characters respect themselves. And it's rare, it's like from a male director.
And it's and part of that too is just it's so clever about writing these characters into corners where they're forced to confront something and how they figure out their way of whether or not they're going to confront it or find a unique way to dodge it. And I loved that about this. The like Patricia Clarkson plays a character who you could call her purely functional within the story, but she infuses that with so much more because she's Patricia Clarkson, but also because that character is so important to revealing what Rebecca Hall as a character wants. It's more than just functional. The same can be said of Chris Messina, who is a character, again, that could be just a one-note character, this very straight-laced businessman. Could be a very functional character, but he adds dimension to it by giving Chris Messina some real emotion and a little bit of weight, just enough weight to where he provides a perfect sort of emblem of the fork in the road that Rebecca Hall's character is facing. And I thought that was just a really great use of supporting players.
You get the impression that she could be happy with either one of these men because they're fully formed men. They're not caricatures.
Yeah. Anything else on Vicky Cristina Barcelona before we?
Rebecca Hall should be on the poster, God damn it, and not sixth build.
Absolutely.
Sixth build after Kevin Dunn. Who the fuck cares about Kevin Dunn? Okay, rant over. Sorry.
All right. We did have a bunch of shit come out in 92. I don't think we discussed watching any of these,
but we've seen most of them.
But we have seen most of them. Malcolm X.
Malcolm X is Spike Lee's biography of Malcolm X, and it's quite brilliant, exceptionally acted by Denzel Washington, directed brilliantly by Spike Lee. It's very long. It can be hard to take. Spike Lee is definitely in his most Spike Lee element here, and that can be hard to take for some, but I find it to be hard to watch today, but at times because of the length and all the stylistic stuff, nothing about, but also it's just very confrontational, and it's not an easy movie to sit back and just like, oh, just Saturday night I'm going to watch Malcolm X. No, probably not. This is not a casual watch.
Right. Yeah, you said it pretty good. I bet Denzel probably one of his better performances and probably deserved an award for this one, more so than Training Day. Bad Lieutenant.
Bad Lieutenant. We did that as a classic on this podcast, and yeah, what a movie! What a movie! Jeff, you want to talk about this one?
I saw this in college in a theater with a friend who thought it was a date. She was like, "Oh, let's go see this. Let's go see a movie." And this was the one that was like the closest to opening when we got to the theater in Denver. And she's like, "Oh, what is that? Like a cop movie?" And I said, "I don't know. I'd heard a little bit about it because I religiously read Premiere Magazine in the 80s and 90s, but yeah, it was. This was one of those. He's not particularly good looking, but it was one of those. Oh shit, Harvey Keitel is kind of sexy, and then like the bad guy kind of thing, and then he's standing there naked, and you're like, oh shit. Why do I feel this way about Harvey Keitel of all people?
He's just phenomenal in this movie. It's such a weird, unique thing that's, I don't know, it was a hell of a movie when we watched it. Was it earlier this year or last year? But whatever it was.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly when it was, maybe last year, but yeah, Abel Ferrara I mean, and not everything he does works, but when he's on this and Ms. 45. Like, fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. I finally saw that movie and that was incredible.
Aladdin.
Aladdin.
I can show you. Oh, never mind.
Let's see here. The Bodyguard.
The Bodyguard. They're making the Whitney biopic this year, and I've still not heard a word about it, even as we're deep into award season. So what does that tell you? But I didn't care for this movie when it came out. I was, for some reason, I was obsessed with how terrible Kevin Costner's haircut is in this movie. I hate it. I just hated it so much. I don't know why. It just bothered me. But also, I just didn't think this was Whitney's strongest music either for this soundtrack, and everybody loved it. So there you
Well, you're kind of wrong there, but
go. Tastes differ, but yeah.
Dolly Parton, dude. Kidding.
Did you love Kevin Costner's hair in that movie, Jeff?
I don't generally like anything about Kevin Costner. I don't love anything about Kevin Costner. He is fine and stuff. My favorite thing about him was when he was in Truth or Dare and Madonna fake throwing up because he said everything was neat. And I always think about him then, like with that. So
I like him as a baseball player. That's about it.
Absolutely.
Then The Crying Game.
Yeah, The Crying Game it's certainly one among the more memorable films of the last 30 years. That's for sure. It is a movie that has not gone away. And at the same time, it's also a movie that revealed a lot of the worst about a lot of people. The thing that people remember about this movie is the Jim Carrey scene from Ace Ventura, which is a really ugly moment in cultural history when you get down to it. At the time, everybody laughed though, and I probably did too. But I look back on it now, and I hate that it overshadows the movie so much.
Oh yeah, I remember when we did this as a classic. It was just like, holy shit! Everything I knew about this movie is such a small part of what this is.
I've never seen Ace Ventura.
Yeah,
Not a big Jim Carrey fan. The last movie I really loved of his was
it's just the same joke that everybody did.
Yeah, it was Once Bitten. That's the last movie I really loved of his.
I like him in Sonic.
I'm just saying that I hate that is emblematic of what people remember about this movie.
This was one of those movies, again, reading Premiere Magazine around this time, that everybody was talking about, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to see it. And I tried to go see it at an art house in Denver, but couldn't. And I finally watched it on videotape, but it had been spoiled. And I was that moment, I knew it was coming, and I was like, oh, I wish I didn't know this about this character.
But the movie was so much more. Like I thought, going into that was. I mean, I was spoiled too when I saw it, but I kind of thought that that's the movie, and it ends up being so much more than that, which was what was so shocking about it. Even more shocking about it than the reveal.
And Jay Davidson was so good. It's a real shame that there wasn't more work there after that, because it's such a tremendous and integral performance.
Absolutely. And then finally, Home Alone 2, Lost in New York.
True Oscar winner here.
Absolutely.
With the greatest actor of all time. I'm the greatest president of all time, the greatest actor of all time.
Yeah, he's in that. I forgot.
Have you heard the stories about that? That the only way that he would let them use his building was if he was in it.
Yeah.
And they came so close to cutting him out of it.
Yeah.
But then there was some contractual thing that he had to appear in it. And I'm just like, ugh.
I think he has that on a handful of movies where if they use the Trump Tower, he has to appear in it or something like that.
Gross.
Which, back to your cheese said movie, he was president when all that was going on.
Yeah.
It's another thing to why people need to see that.
Movie picks up immediately after Carey Mulligan's character has revealed everything about Trump ahead of the 2016 election, where he still got elected, which kind of sets the tone for the entire movie.
Yeah. All right. Next week we got Violent Night, The Eternal Daughter and Darby and the Dead. We haven't picked a classic yet.
Can I make a suggestion?
Absolutely.
Since we're doing Violent Night, we should really revisit Silent Night, Deadly Night.
I'm all for that. I've always loved watching Sean squirm.
All right.
Yeah, that
I
was actually one of my
Love
best
/ hate that
experiences.
movie. So
I had a good experience watching that movie as a kid. I'll just share that on the show later.
Sean, you can watch part 2 also, because it basically just rehashes the entire first one. And the guy goes, "Garbage day."
I love Garbage Day. That's one of my favorite memes.
I just love that Mickey Rooney shit all over it existing, and then he shows up in like what, part 5 or something like that.
Yep, the toy maker, which actually sometime next month, the parts 3, 4, and 5 with Mickey Rooney come out on a Vestron Video horror Blu-ray series. But I'm gonna pick them up just because it's
Why not?
unhinged. Bill Moseley plays a killer with a fishbowl on his head. I really want to make you guys watch that. It's just oh, it's so. And he plays the killer from part 2 who is shot in the head, but he survives and has a fishbowl apparatus on his head that you see his brain, and he has a psychic link with this blind. It's oh my god, it's just the worst movie. It's a good Riff Tracks movie.
All right.
1992, Damage, The Distinguished Gentleman, and To Grandma's House We Go coming up. So it'll be a lot shorter episode than this.
Oh no, we're going to talk for a good hour about Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Works for me.
Dig into the themes and the symbolism and the.
When we went and saw Terrifier 2, the trailer for Violent Night came out, and Sean was like, "At least Santa's the killer in this one, versus he's the good guy in this one."
Yeah.
So that was.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about the whole like controversy surrounding all the Christmas horror movies, because I have feelings.
All right.
Many of them. There are so many Christmas horror movies. It's crazy.
It's great. You know me, I love horror movies. And I love Christmas.
My brother even made one.
I've seen it.
Sorry.
I watched it on Thanksgiving 2014, because I was house sitting when I was living in Chicago and I had to work the next day. So I just stayed there. My boyfriend came over and I was like, "Oh, this is my friend's brother's movie. We should watch this." And we didn't make it all the way through.
It's okay.
Not because it was bad, but it was the Happy Gilmore effect.
Yeah.
I've never seen the ending of Happy Gilmore. We'll just put it that way.
I've had people asking me if they can, where they can find it. People that, especially now where I'm at with my job, where I'm just like, I don't know. You can't find it anywhere. You're not going to see it. I'm not going to show you a movie with necrophilia in it. All right. Let's play a little bit of Flickshare if you guys have time. It is, holy shit. All right, we'll do a couple quick rounds if you're all right with that.
That's fine.
Ever After, Grandma's Boy.
Ever After.
Ever After.
Yes, I don't smoke pot. Flight Plan, Life of Pi.
Life of Pi.
Yeah, same.
Agreed. The Road to El Dorado, The Book of Eli.
The Book of Eli.
Yeah, I've never seen El Dorado, so.
No need.
Grave of the Fireflies. Anybody
Never seen it.
that?
You
Sean,
can
have you seen it?
change that one, I guess. Yeah. It's been 20 years since I saw it.
General's Daughter, or the other
Boleyn
Girl.
The Other Boleyn Girl is a great movie. Scarlett Johansson, Natalie Portman. I think it's Eric Bana. So I'm definitely picking that, but I have a secret love of just how terrible the General's Daughter is.
That's so bad.
But it's so bad in a wonderful way, though. It's so awful. Like, it leads into being just the grossest movie.
See, I was just so mad at it, so I could. And I don't really want to go back and find an appreciation for it.
The General's Daughter is a movie you can smell.
Oh yeah, I picked that before Jeff and I chose. I hope that was okay. Three Kings and Some of All Fears.
Three Kings.
Absolutely. Vertical Limit, The Lady Killers.
I have not seen The Lady Killers or Vertical Limit, so
Lady Killers, even though, I mean, only because Vertical Limit is terrible. So Lesser Coen Brothers is always going to be better than Vertical Limit.
Deuce Bigelow, Mel Bigelow, Frankenstein, 2011.
I think that's not a movie. I think that was I don't know what that was. Broadway thing.
You talking Deuce Bigelow or Frankenstein? Just get rid of both of them. Heavenly Creatures, American Outlaws.
Heavenly Creatures.
Universal Soldier, The Return, or The Brave Little Toaster.
I don't think that's a movie.
Jesus Christ.
Universal Soldier, The Return, The Fast and the Furious.
The Fast and the Furious.
Yep.
I'm going Universal Soldier. The King of Comedy, The Road.
The King of Comedy. I mean, they're both bleak, but at least
Yeah,
the King of Comedy is kind of entertaining.
But yeah, The King of Comedy has Sandra Bernhard in it, so.
Dwyer, The Wrath of God.
I've seen Sicko, but I haven't seen Spaghetti.
Here, you've seen that.
Not familiar with it.
Shanghai Noon or Sicko.
Sicko.
Yeah. MASH, Total Recall, 2012.
MASH.
The Thomas Crown Affair, 1999.
Brazil.
Yeah, Brazil.
I do kind of like the Thomas Crown Affair, but it's like it's fine. It's good.
Right. It's serviceable.
Yeah.
Right. Thumb and Louise, Jumper.
Thumb and Louise.
Although I actually kind of liked Jumper.
I hated Jumper.
Of course you did.
This is like The Dark Knight Rises, Inception.
I like both these movies a lot. I'm gonna take Inception. I think it's just slightly better.
I'm gonna pick Dark Knight Rises.
Fuckers.
I'm making Bob choose between two Christopher Nolan movies. Beautiful.
I'll go Inception since the podcast started on me not liking Dark Knight Rises. Kramer versus Kramer, Wonder Boys.
Wonder Boys. The one that doesn't have Dustin Hoffman abusing Meryl Streep.
Yeah. I'll stay Wonder Boys.
True story.
It's so good.
I just finally saw Kramer versus Kramer a couple of years ago, and I was like, oh.
Isn't Dustin Hoffman insufferable? He's just insufferable.
I don't mind him. It's just that movie was just rough and it was ugly and
yeah. Arachnophobia
quiz show.
I'm gonna say Arachnophobia. That was way more fun.
I just think Ralph Fiennes is incredible in quiz show.
Great quiz show. Shaun of the Dead, A Beautiful Mind.
Controversial opinion. I don't love Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, me neither. It's fun and it was fun the first time, but it does not hold up to rewatches. So I'll say A Beautiful Mind.
Well, I feel that crowd really likes that movie. I don't know. I like some of the newer stuff. I go right done more so than that trailer we put together. Mission Impossible Fallout, One More One.
That's tough. That is a tough one because I think Mission Impossible Fallout's a pretty terrific movie. I would probably watch Mission Impossible Fallout first, but I gotta admit that Run Lola Run, for what it is a more accomplished movie. So I guess I'll go Run Lola Run.
Yeah, same here.
Double Indemnity.
Okay. I'm gonna say Double Indemnity. However, the the director's cut / producer's cut of Alien 3 is actually very good, and I do love that version of it.
Culture High, Run Fat Boy.
Never seen Culture High.
Grumpy Old Man, Run Fat Boy.
Grumpy Old Man. It's still somehow it's still funny today. That movie is still funny to me. I watched clips of it the other day. It was just it still makes me laugh.
It's because of the chemistry of the cast. Everybody in that movie works.
You can tell they're having fun making it.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. It's like one of the Adam Sandler buddy movies, except with people who I like.
Well, yeah, but even like grown-ups, like they're having fun, but it doesn't translate onto the screen at all. It's just
because none of them are particularly likable.
And the direction's terrible. Clear and Present Danger, Speed 2, Cruise.
Clear and Present Danger.
Oh, come on. Yeah.
Say fuck about those movies. Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World,
Misery.
Master and Commander.
I'm Misery, Master and Commander is better, but it's long. I don't know, I like enough fun. Bewitched, Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Journey to the Center of the Earth, and only because Bewitched is unwatchable.
Literally, the only good part about Bewitched was Amy Sedaris playing Gladys Kravitz at the end. Literally, the only good part about it.
The Hard Way, James and John.
I think I've seen both of them, but I have no memory of them to tell you whether or not one is better than the other.
Rear Window, Spanglish.
Rear Window.
But I do like Spanglish. This is the rare, not terrible Adam Sandler movie.
Yeah. The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, 2003, Trading Places.
Trading Places
Because we're watching it play out in real time with Herschel Walker in Georgia. Have you seen the picture of him between Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham? And then that's on the top, and then on the bottom is Don Amici and Eddie Murphy. It's pretty fucking hilarious.
That's good.
Dennis the Menace,
UHF.
Creed, Super Mario Brothers.
Creed.
I should make you choose, Bob.
I wonder
I'll
what
say Creed.
Yeah, that's the reason I hate Mark Rylance. Pacific Rim, Patterson.
Sure.
While You Were Sleeping, 20 weeks later.
While You Were Sleeping.
Yeah, if you'd said 28 days later, I would have picked that, but While You Were Sleeping.
I agree completely. Spider-Man Homecoming, American Graffiti.
Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yeah, I'm a George Lucas fanboy, but I would rather watch Spider-Man than
Marley and Me's Thriller, A Cool Picture.
I don't know what that is, but I want to see it based on that poster.
Yeah.
It's very cool. Marley and Me, Hot Shots.
Marley and Me.
Hot Shots.
I love Marley and Me.
I just can't. The super saccharine, sugary movies, I just can't.
If you're going to watch one of those movies, that's the best version of it.
But it's got Owen Wilson and Jennifer Aniston in it.
They're both really good in it.
Hot Shots. The Messengers, The Cable Guy.
The Messengers is just terrible.
Yeah.
Cable Guy's got it good, but at least it's memorable.
Flatliners, 500 Days of Summer.
500 Days of Summer.
I know that's the better movie. I hate Zooey Deschanel though. So, but I'll still say that because, I don't want to get kicked off the show already.
Oh, they're not gonna end the show for us. I always like to try something fun, but there's never a good. Sometimes it just goes on forever.
Yeah. Looks like it's making the decision for us.
Alien versus Tiger. What the hell? Tenet or Ace Ventura?
Tenet.
Yeah. I haven't even seen Tenet and I don't want to vote for Ace
I've never
Ventura.
seen it either. Hannibal, Nightmare Before Christmas.
Nightmare Before Christmas.
Unpopular opinion, I don't like The Nightmare Before Christmas, so I'm going to
I
pick
don't love it
Hannibal.
either.
I can't really guess. All right, nothing fun's happening, so that's our show. We'll see you next week. All right, thanks, guys.
Yep. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, see ya.
Everybody watch Darby from the Dead.